And at 10, coffee. In FNAF VR Help Wanted, you can see multiple different animatronics. However, the most interesting one, at least in my opinion, and probably the coolest one, is actually the hidden animatronic of coffee, which isn't even an animatronic from the FNAF series. It's actually from another one of Scott's games, which failed, like every other game before FNAF. Unfortunately, though. I mean, like, at least FNAF was successful. Then, the other games were as well, after FNAF. The game from which coffee hails is called Desolate Hope, and in that game, coffee is an autonomous service robot designed to tend to the needs of nearby humans. It's basically a sentient coffee machine that actually makes coffee. Welcome to Yogg Labs. I mean, I wish, but no, the coffee machine never actually works, and if it does, you should be concerned. Coffee can be seen in Five Nights 3 if you reload the level enough times in FNAF VR, and he'll be sitting on your desk at some point, hopefully. You're unable to interact with him, and he won't actually make you coffee, which does suck, because, you know, when I'm being freaked out by a 60-year-old dude trapped in an animatronic who's trying to kill me, coffee would really settle my nerves, and I'm definitely going to need it if I'm working from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m., okay? God, imagine FNAF, but it's real time, and you can only play between 12 and 6 a.m. That would suck. Someone should do that. That's funny as hell, though. Someone do that so that Markiplier can do it, because I'm not going to. If people aren't even gonna consider me the king of FNAF, I'm not even gonna try. In at 9, blood on the cover. The security logbook is a real point of contention for the series, but like, whatever. I'm not talking about what's inside the book, content-wise. This time, I'm talking about why there are literal pages covered in or splattered with blood, and the restaurant just gives it to you as if nothing's wrong with it, okay? What the hell? What happened to cause blood to get all over this book within the pages, covering the cover, okay? Like, there's fresh blood on it, too. Like, it's shiny, meaning that it must be recent. Like, I'm prone to nosebleeds, okay? But I know that it's not a nosebleed. Okay, you don't lose that much blood unless you're me, but that's because my veins were all screwed up, okay? I had to get the inside of my nose burnt in elementary school because I had like 20 small burns on each side because there was veins. It was a mess, okay? But not even that would generate this much blood, okay? So why is this book covered in blood? And why is no one mentioning it, okay? Someone else wrote in the book, but they also bled all over it. That's not sanitary. That's not OSHA safe. What's going on? I don't know. Dark Carnival. In the spin-off game, FNAF Security Breach Fury's Rage, which I actually played on the channel. If you want to check that out, you can go find it. But you fight as one of the 4 Security Breach animatronics, and you go against a slew of enemies. These enemies include the characters from like Clown Springtrap from FNAF AR's Dark Carnival event. But not only do we see that character, we can actually see the carnival itself in the background when that character gets introduced into this game. Clown Springtrap gets introduced in the second level, and while scrolling through the street, whenever the background isn't blocked by a building in the middle, you can actually see the top of a tent, which is no doubt meant to be a carnival, okay? Because like, there's also the Clown Springtraps. But why? Why are there so many Clown Springtraps there? Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of concerning. I mean, like, they're after us. I don't know why they're after us, but like, there are so many clown it is a version of the serial killer that put you out of business. Why are you making clown versions at a damn carnival? And why do we never see Magician Mangle or Ringmaster Foxy? That's another mystery, okay? But it's a little thing nonetheless. In at 7, multiverse. All of these changes, however, can be explained by the concept of the Poppy Playtime multiverse. That's right, we're back here. And it's something that the trailer is seemingly hinting at as well. And it's more than just the whole Mommy and Huggy still being alive thing, since after all that, this could just be explained away with this being a prequel. But there's more to it than that. Because, like I said, there's a shot of Huggy Wuggy on the ground in a similar fashion to the Chapter 2 trailer. But this time, instead of Mommy grabbing him, the green guy does. And then he stomps him to death, and that's when things start going south. But the fact that they made this Huggy doll laying in the same position as the Chapter 2 doll seems significant to me. It seems to be trying to show us that while yes, it's the same place and the same backstory, that it's not the same events in game, or that the events of the main Poppy Playtime games don't relate to this one, which makes sense given that this could break a lot of what we think we know about Poppy Playtime currently, but it also doesn't mean that this can't help us figure out what's going on in the main series. Maybe it's like a FNAF World scenario, and it's just tied to it slightly, but not a lot, just in case. And it's 6, Game Link. This Easter egg was pointed out by MatPat in one of his his final timeline videos for Ultimate Custom Night, not the recent one that was all story-based and not actually evidence-based, but that's beside the point, where he started the video spending 10 minutes downloading a fresh copy of both FNAF World and Ultimate Custom Night so that nothing had been unlocked. Then he showcased that in FNAF World, you were able to dive deep into the game's code and visit Old Man Consequences, who will say some things and then ultimately make you drown yourself because you needed to get out of that level. This reveals a secret ending to the game, then it gives you a trophy for it. But in Ultimate Custom Night, you are also able to visit Old Man Consequences, who tells you to leave the demon to his demons, rest your own soul, we all know about that. However, if you do this, you'll also need to drown yourself again to leave that game. Doing this, however, while never even having played a second of FNAF World, will actually unlock the Old Man Consequences trophy in FNAF World if you've done it at Ultimate Custom Night, which is odd, but might be Scott's way of saying that that game is still canon. I mean, it did talk about sentient code and that things in that game can affect the real world, since it had you had to lay out the clues for FNAF 3 in it, hinting at the fact that that game might have been key in solving the lore, but at this point it's not because goddamn this game has gotten confusing. But I mean, come on, sentient code affecting the outside world, that's all of Security Breach. That's exactly what Security Breach was talking about. So yeah, glitch trap confirmed.
Number 5, expanded universe. We should all be scared of expanded universes in video game worlds, all of us. In High on Life, players must gather pesos to purchase upgrades for their suits and guns. And now while there are pawn stores on each level that offer a few upgrades, most of the wares can be found at the big old pawn shop in Blim City. At the center of the store though, players will find a counter. It's just filled with a bunch of joke items. A bunch of joke stuff for a joke game. When players try to purchase these items, the shop owner will give a funny reason why they can't. One of these items is a Crystal of Ithacles, which is a reference to Squanch Games' previous title, Trover Saves the Universe. In Trover Saves the Universe, players use crystals of Ithacles to upgrade their abilities, making its placement in the pawn shop a nod to the previous work, and creating a larger Squanch Games expanded universe.
In it for Crying Child chest. In Princess Quest, the Security Breach version, not the Help Wanted mobile port version, there are purple chests that are meant to contain keys that are in essence ending of the level chests. But a while ago, and I'm talking 2021 I'm pretty sure, someone pointed out to me that the purple chest actually kind of looks like Crying Child. There's 2 black eyes on the lid, slightly lighter streaks coming down from those eyes, and a stripe on the shirt. I mean, I made a quick reference photo to show you what I mean if you haven't seen it before, where I just added color to the parts to help you better visualize it. But honestly, after this was pointed out to me, I knew that I'd have to bring it up on a list, and I haven't been able to unsee it. God, I've been gathering points for years for some of these, okay? Damn. I don't know if it was intentional, but it doesn't seem wrong, you know? Getting close to the end, and number 3, Among Us. Now, is it just me, or are the characters in this trailer looking hella sus, okay? I was half expecting this game to be based on Among Us or Secret Neighbor instead of Dead by Daylight because of the design of the players in the trailer. Of course, it could be a reference to the game, just like the golden statue could be a reference to FNAF. But you cannot look at me and say that they do not look like Among Us crewmates. I was half expecting one of them to jump into a vent to try to escape Mommy Longlegs, and none of them make it out of the facility from what we can see in the trailer. So are they just sending wave after wave of RE specialists in there just to have them all die? Or is this you only get one shot situation? Because the answer is going to greatly alter the story of this game, or the course of the story for the series depending, okay? If it's intended to have one, at least. It could also just be an easy way to release the game and stay relevant until Chapter 3 comes out, but I don't know. This could just be the Chapter 3 that we didn't expect, and it's all freaking Among Us, because we all love that game, and Red is never sus, and I am not salty about any of the games I've ever had, especially ones on this channel. Also, by the way, fun fact, this game is technically released under a different company. This one is by Mob Games, with games in all caps, while Poppy Playtime and Poppy Playtime Chapter 2 is by Mob Games, with games only having a capital G. I don't know, some wouldn't think that it matters, but to Steam, it's a whole other company with its own page. If you didn't know, now you do. And ultimately, and number 2, evil programming. Have you ever thought about why these animatronics are actually attacking you in depth? Sure, we know it's because we look like William or whatever and the animatronics were being possessed, but if I was possessing something and I was going after the man that I thought had killed me, I'd get pretty steamed if he kept shutting a door in my face every time I got close to enacting my revenge. But if that also keeps happening, do you know what I would do? I would change things up. You know, I would go down a different path than the same path that I was doing every time I got blocked. But nobody does that in FNAF 1. Bonnie, Chica, Freddy, they all stick to their same paths every single time they come after us, which makes me think that they aren't really doing that because they want revenge or because we aren't wearing an animatronic suit. No, the repeated patterns and inability to adapt to different situations really makes this seem like it's their purpose, that it's intentional. It's like what they were told to do in their programming. Following the same route every time is what code does. It's what the programming is telling them to do. Angry spirits possessing robots would be adapting even if they are kids, alright? I'm just gonna say it. Spirits don't have to follow the same linear line every single time. They're a ghost. They can do whatever. And finally, in at number 1, it's me. There are only 2 people who, at least to my knowledge, were able to see this Easter egg, and it involves the Curse of Dreadbear DLC and completing a game to be taken to that victory screen. In that victory screen, which I talked about earlier in the barn, you can find 3 posters reminiscent of ones from the alleyways in Pizzeria Simulator. However, this is where the ability to unlock the Easter egg is determined, because you need to get all 3 of them to be clowns, which is incredibly rare, and I mean incredibly rare. I spent way too much time trying to do this and I never got 3. Plus, then you need to be able to hit them all with darts, which you only get 4 of, so if you miss 2 of them, you're screwed. Okay, I had been looking for that Easter egg for hours, probably full days if I just add up all the time that I spent. I was never able to find it. Okay, I was doing it in lockdown. I was playing that game, torturing myself just to try to find this damn thing, and I didn't. Okay, I wanted to so badly. So if you manage to do this, good luck. Because the barn will change into a blacklight version where the victory banner changes to read "It's me" and everything just starts glowing because of the blacklight. Apparently, Johnny Blocks and Dawko are the only 2 to have ever gotten this Easter egg, from what I've seen at least, and what I've been told in the comments, but like not even MatPat was able to do this. And Eddie VR wasn't even trying, but yeah, God, if I wanted to find this, I would have to spend way too much time in the game again, so I'd rather not, but I guess it's kind of par for this series because, you know, emotional, eternal torment. Kind of like my ex. It's been 2 years. Move on.
Number 10. Sister blocker. Okay, look, you know, I know it's a game, and as soon as you get any weapon in a game, really, you just want to go nuts. You want to see some explosions, some colors going. I get it. And in most cases, the only characters you can really attack are, you know, enemies. That makes sense. But in High on Life, you sort of start the game right off the bat, you get thrown into the action. You start playing a Doom parody at the start, and then you get pulled away by your sister and taken outside. You go outside and then are basically instantly given a talking gun, and I'm guessing the hope of giving you a gun at the start was that your manic tendencies would be quelched. But if they're not, you can always try and shoot everyone anyway. But if you try and shoot your sister, who's outside with you watching the whole mess, Kenny, the talking gun, will ask you to try and keep your homicidal urges on the inside and focus them on the dudes you have to take down. So even if you do try and eliminate your sister, thankfully for your family, the game won't let you. You know, despite her being a bit of a negative influence on you, you know, offering you substances at the beginning of this game that definitely make it more than a little bit difficult to talk about in family-friendly YouTube videos. Number 9, 5 Torg. Now the first boss in the game that you take on is 9 Torg, who stole Knifey and is meant to be your introduction. However, part of the story is that 9 Torg is always in conflict with her clones, which are other numbered Torgs. Makes it pretty easy to tell them apart. Now after you defeat 9 Torg, 5 Torg is dropped down, still captured. And you can't free her, but you can actually kill her. You'll see a health bar appear on the screen when you shoot at her. Even though she's tied up and can't move, she'll still persuade and beg you not to shoot her. That's important to know though, you just gotta ignore what she's saying and finish the job. There are no real repercussions for killing 5 Torg, you're a bounty hunter, it's part of the job. But as soon as you do it, Kenny will acknowledge that the 2 of you killed a secret boss, which is a great start to the meta-breaking commentary others provide throughout the game. I did this without even thinking about it. I didn't even know there were other options, I just immediately shot at it. Maybe that's revealing too much about me in this video. Number 8, lazy design. High on Life is a game that is filled to the brim with self-referential humor. I mean, you gotta expect it's Justin Roiland from Rick and Morty fame, that's kind of his whole bread and butter. And the characters often make jokes, poking fun at things and breaking the fourth walls a little bit, making fun of like the design and gameplay elements and even the players' decisions. However, there was one joke that stood out for us in particular. In the Port Terrian world, which is themed around a Wild West desert town, players can find a doorway that is blocked by boxes. When players try to enter it by shooting it with their gun, Kenny comments on the lazy level design, and this is a nod to video game critics and the way they sometimes criticize games for having uninspired level design. Overall, High on Life is a game that does not take itself too seriously whatsoever and is focused way more on delivering laughs for players than trying to get a 10 out of 10 sticker on the front cover of the box. But hey, calling out the critics who are meant to be reviewing your games, I don't know, man. You get the wrong ones and you are in for a rude set of responses.
Hidden 7's secret poster. This is no secret, even though I don't know what it looks like, but you can find answers on like Google Images. The FNAF VR DLC has a barn as its victory screen whenever you finish a game successfully. When you win, you're brought to this barn, basically, alright? However, there are 3 posters that can be one of 3 things, and in the distance there's a secret 4th poster that never changes. But you can't really get a good look at it without boundary breaking, and since I can't do that, I've been forced to remain here trying to squint to see if I can actually see what it says. I don't know, I think it's some version of Chica, but I can't quite be sure. This has been bugging me for so long that I actually might have to get the mod so I can just know, okay? Like, I don't know, it's not lore solving or anything like that, but I feel like I should know, okay? It bothers me to my core, and it's a hidden detail nonetheless.
Number 6, Copyright Theater. Now, the creators of this game are hardcore movie buffs, and they love to throw in references to some of their favorites or just some of the classics. You know, this could wind them getting in some hot water if they don't do their due diligence. Because in High on Life, players can find a movie theater where they can watch full-length movies and listen to commentary on them by the game's characters. You got Tammy the T-Rex in there, which is one of Paul Walker's best classics, definitely worth watching inside the game or outside if you've never seen. This is a great opportunity for players to enjoy some meta humor and take a break from playing the game. We also get cameos from Mike Stacklasa and Rich Evans, and I never thought I would live long enough to see Red Letter Media in a video game. That made me so happy. This Easter egg is sure to satisfy cinephiles with its hidden little treat. Overall, the theater is a fun and humorous addition to the game, and hey, hopefully it doesn't get them in too much trouble, you know what I'm saying? But with people on YouTube getting copyright striked for merely saying the word umbrella a few times, I'm always skeptical, and I hope I didn't set nothing off there. And hey, if you love High on Life even half as much as we do around here, be sure to give the video a like so we know, and hey, maybe you'll see a bunch more High on Life videos showing up in your inbox if you subscribe too.
Speaking of which, halfway through into number 5, FNAF reference? Is it just me, or does a giant gold statue of Huggy Wuggy in the center of what seems to be a play area ring any alarms for anyone else, okay? Because like, looking at this, it is a very similar layout kind of design-wise to Security Breach's Mega Pizzaplex, with a set of stairs on either side, and like I said, a giant statue of their mascot in the middle. And honestly, with all the questions that we've had and the comparisons we've made and all the similar elements of children becoming the toys or characters that so many love, and all the gruesomeness that comes with those implications, I don't think that this would be very much of a stretch, especially since this doesn't confirm the places or companies as the same universe, but because after all it would just be a reference. But it's still a fun little nod to no doubt a major inspiration for the series, considering how Poppy Playtime and Mob Games was created by Enchanted Mob, who's done a lot of FNAF-based Minecraft animations. Of course, they didn't intend on copying or anything like that, but they were definitely just inspired by the series. So this would definitely be a nice reference, and I'm pretty sure something that was intended as such.
Number 4, Total Destruction. There's a really big Godzilla reference in High on Life when players enter Cutie Town. Fans of the lovable giant kaiju will easily recognize the reference in the dialogue and the wreckage of the town. So to see this reference, the players gotta go up to Blordo's food stall and you gotta purchase a specific warp disc. Once there, you'll meet a cute and kind looking host, just like me. But things quickly take a turn as they realize that simply moving around is crushing the citizens of Cutie Town. The visual connection to Godzilla allows players to stomp around the town like the giant monster, adding to the variety of references to this game. I mean, if you ever wanted to live out your Godzilla fantasy, here's a great place to do it. Fans of Godzilla movies will surely appreciate this Easter egg, but I think everyone's probably gonna feel pretty messed up after absolutely decimating this town full of cuties. Unless you're just like incapable of feeling normal emotions. I know I struggle with that every now and again. Let's just keep this list moving.
Getting close to the end of number 3, Your Honor. This is the last point that's going to involve the FNAF lawsuits on this list. However, start. In civil case number 834710865, the one involving the third bite incident, actually has quite the interesting judge presiding over the trial. Judge Steve Kaufman is listed on the complaint, which should be taken note of because the initials of SC are quite important to FNAF, given that the creator, Scott Cawthon, also shares those initials. And considering how Steve Kaufman and Scott Cawthon sound so damn similar, I think that we can all agree that this is probably just a nod to the creator of the series and the founder, at least in a way, like the founder who didn't kill countless people in an attempt to find the secrets to immortality, I think. I don't know. I guess maybe he did do that because he wrote the story where all of that happened to those people. So, that's a way of looking at it. Don't sue me, Scott, please.
Number 2, Bethesda Dig. One thing about Bethesda games that annoys me is the inability for kids to die. Okay, look, I know how that sounds coming out of my mouth, and I know out of context that didn't sound too good at all, but hear me out here. When a dragon attacks Whiterun and Braith doesn't run into the house, why is she able to survive? Makes me feel like I'm being shown up around here. If I'm supposed to be the legendary Dragonborn, I'm gonna save the world and I'm the most powerful warrior in the world, and there's an immortal 8-year-old right in front of me. It gets modded out, and honestly, if you got a mature rating anyway, what's the point of keeping this thing in? Well, High on Life has an answer to that. And one of the first locations you visit is the Blim City slums. To get there, you gotta pass through a security gate and a massive drainage pipe filled with injured, worried NPCs. And one of these NPCs is a taunting child who directly confronts the player and mocks them, even inviting you to shoot them. Now, your gun, Kenny, tells them not to, but if you want to, you have the option to do it. And this earns you the achievement, Fallout Doesn't Let You Do This. That's a pretty funny name. Now, I don't want to be too pedantic, but Fallout is one of my favorite series, so I gotta mention that in Fallout 1 and 2, you actually could hurt children, but that was before tighter content laws. The 90s were a wild time, man. Led to the games being banned in Europe. So later entries in the series wouldn't do this, and Elder Scrolls either, but High on Life allows you to make this grave moral choice. But luckily, it isn't even a kid anyway. It gets revealed that he was actually 30, so don't feel too bad about that. You shoot loads of aliens in this game who are probably 30 or more. And finally, number 1, an hour. As players infiltrate the G3 cartel by pretending to be a new recruit, you're required to watch strange orientation videos. And in one of these videos, the player is told to sit in the room for an hour as a test of patience. However, the player's guns encourage them to find a way to escape the room instead. While it's easy to escape by crawling through a hole in the wall, there's actually a secret little Easter egg for those who have the patience to wait the full hour. The screen will turn black to play a short video mocking the player for sitting in the room and doing nothing for so long. The recruiter will sarcastically say, "What an achievement. Kudos to you. Hope you feel like that was worth your time." After the sarcastic clip, a door is opened, allowing the player to continue. Or at least that's how it's supposed to go, since the door actually fails to function and breaks, causing you to go around the other way anyway, meaning you did waste your time. Unless you wanted to wait the full week that it would take for the repair guy to arrive, but you know, you don't really have enough air in there. I don't know for sure if you actually can wait an in-game week. There's no objective to do so, you gotta run through the other area. But, hey.
In a 10, Boxy Boo. Probably the biggest reveal in this game, and the most interesting way I've seen a new character or antagonist be revealed is Boxy Boo, who's the newest antagonist monster with a desire to just tear you apart while looking like an innocent giant jack-in-the-box. What's with these games and having giant monsters that are focused on, like, kid memory objects, right? Like a giant jack-in-the-box that will tear you limb from limb while they chase you around a toy factory, and a giant Thomas the Tank Engine knockoff that's pumped itself full of too much Stephen King that it started terrorizing an entire island. Well, no matter what, this is probably going to be the antagonist of Chapter 3. I mean, I feel like that's kind of like the general consensus. And using the whole game to reveal that instead of just doing it in a trailer like they did with Mommy Longlegs was definitely a new approach. I mean, like, I get just doing it in a trailer, especially since this game is free, but it just seems odd until I remembered that since Mommy Longlegs hadn't been introduced previously, none of us really cared about the character when she was introduced in the trailer. So since Boxy Boo also wasn't established, maybe this game was them making the reveal for them in Chapter 3 or possibly 4 more exciting in a way. And at 9, Chapter 2. The trailer for the game that I didn't think came out before the game itself and just kind of popped up on Steam, and it's just kind of on the Steam page, also kind of sets some rules right away. Firstly, it establishes that this is the same facility as the one from the games by giving us the same same scene from Chapter 2's trailer. Well, okay, not like the same scene as in like the same shot from like top-down view of Huggy's toy, but the shot of Huggy on the ground in that pose, but this time around, instead it's Huggy on the ground in that pose where you can picture the camera being above him. But this time around, the green RE specialist picks it up, which is important, and I'll get to that in a minute. But then the toy reveals that it's also a monster, and Green stomps the life out of it, which is something I think we all wanted to do. We know that this was in fact alive thanks to the blood that is left under its head after, you know, it gets its skull stomped on. But this establishes a couple of things. One, that even the smaller toys sold by Playtime Co. are in fact humans, most likely the kids from the orphanage mentioned in Chapter 2. And two, that the Huggy we see Mommy grab at the beginning of the second chapter trailer is, as we figured, a toy. And that because of that, MatPat is probably right, thinking that she had to eat a lot of the toys in the building to keep herself going and keep herself sustained. So that's fun. I don't think MatPat likes me. I had this revelation this morning, and it ain't grab pack changes. There's also some changes to the grab packs in this game, since the hands, at least in this game, are related to the RE specialist suits that you're in. If you're red, your hands are red. If you're blue, you have blue hands, etc. At least without customization. But this pulls into question what we are doing in the first game having to get different colored hands, because any RE specialist can complete any puzzle, but the buttons that you have to place your hand on to activate the minigames are green. By the logic of the main story games, we wouldn't be able to interact with those, and we would need the green RE specialist to actually activate any minigames, making them the most essential part of the team and a first priority for any decent monster. For anyone who's playing to win as the monster and not just trying to have fun. Competitive online play would basically just become Protect Green, unless players could get green hands elsewhere, which is probably why they scrapped this rule for this game. But it's still an interesting discretion to point out when I need to fill out a top 10 list. You can also add cosmetics to your grab pack, like any free game trying to get your money, and I'm pretty sure that it has its own battle pass too, but you can have Mommy Long Leg be the reason your arms can extend, which is a whole other can of worms that I don't want to talk about.
Number 7. Speedrunning. Now, I think we all know about speedrunning here. I assume if you're watching a gaming channel, you know a thing or two about it. It's what I would honestly call an art of breaking a game and taking certain paths and choices and shortcuts to make you get to an ending with the fastest possible time. It's really fun stuff, and if you've never seen one, you should look one up after this video. I feel like game devs do remember speedrunners when making games, but you know, most don't really put in secrets for them since they wouldn't really pay much attention. Well, with a game that breaks the meta as much as High on Life, and one that has a clippy knockoff installed in your bounty hunter suit, you know there are going to be bound to be nods to things outside the game. Like for example, if you take a particular path while speedrunning. If you take this one path, your Microsoft Assistant reject will ask if you're speedrunning. It's pretty funny. They admire it, say you're absolutely allowed to, and they wish you luck, saying they hope you get a world record. But you have to admit, it's kind of creepy when you think about it and you realize that this character inside the game knows what you're doing outside the game. Take a look at this clip from Crackling Bananas on YouTube, which is how we learned about this secret.
Are you trying to speedrun? Are you speedrunning right now? That's okay, you can do that. We think that's cool. We think that's great. Good luck. I hope you get a world record.
And at 6, Huggy Survival. Okay, when you're put on the hook in this, I mean, when you're put in one of the holes in this game, because this isn't Dead by Daylight, you have to play the whole Huggy Wuggy minigame from Chapter 2 to stay alive until you're revived. You basically just gotta whack a bunch of Huggies in the face for as long as you can. However, my question is, why is this the thing that you're thrown into? Because from what we know, until Chapter 2, these Huggies are on strings that pull them back if they get too close. Mommy cuts them in Chapter 2 and then dies shortly thereafter, so if we're never at the location to kill her, the Huggies never get released, because she cuts them to stop us. Meaning that this shouldn't be a threat at all. My other question is, why is this what we have to fight against if this is meant to be a children's game, okay? Like, forget why the Huggies are dangerous if other events don't occur. This is established in the series as a game meant for kids. Why is this the thing that we fight for our lives in if it's meant for children? Come on, this is a very FNAF feeling sort of scenario, if you know what I mean. And also, you're still here, hit like, okay? We might farm FNAF content, but we're not doing it anymore, very much. Halfway through into number 5, lawsuit legality. I've mentioned these lawsuits from FNAF 6 a lot recently, but there's good reason for it, okay? Lawsuit number 4, at least in the gallery order on the fandom wiki, which is civil suit number 365422879, has their first complaint is, quote, a young boy suffered severe mental trauma because because of defendant Fazbear Entertainment Inc.'s cold-hearted indifference to the health and well-being of the human population, which, while true, would not actually, I think, be valid on a lawsuit. You can't really describe the company as cold-hearted or say that they don't care about the health and well-being of the human population. I'm pretty sure that that's slander, or maybe libel depending on how they would want to pursue it because it's written on the document, but it's also being said, I don't know, okay? But as it would pertain to like the facts of the case, you have no information as to what's in the brains of other people. It's like how you can't say what someone else said, you know, like objection hearsay. Like you can't speak to what's in other people's minds. And in this case, it doesn't seem like Fazbear has really much fault. Like the ground gave way beneath this boy and he got trapped in basically a mini sinkhole, something which would have been near impossible to calculate. And it's even noted on the suit that Fazbear Entertainment was lowering him pizza and party favors while they were waiting for emergency services. And all this kid developed as a result of this was a fear of the dark and a fear of anchovies, both of which are common among kids already. I have both of these. I'm not gonna eat anchovies, and also I don't like the dark. You don't know what's in there. So yeah, I don't know how that's really an issue. In it for skins. The skins of the various monsters as well as something that could have heavy implications. I mean, Huggy Wuggy has a robot skin for God's sakes. Do you know how much that messes with me? Okay, like the original theory that we had until we figured out that people were toys was that Huggy was a robot. And that's all because sentient animatronics are always on our mind like a really old Cody Simpson song. But now, it's actually a thing that there are Huggies that are robots. Is that what this means? So yeah, does that mean that the other Huggies out there that we haven't defeated yet just might be robots that we'll have to fight in later chapters? Or is this just like a FNAF World situation where we can't be sure about it until they confirm it, and they'll only confirm it if we like the idea? Like how Multiverse of Madness was meant to just be like testing for how the audience would react to Jim Halpert as Mr. Fantastic, the return of Black Bolt and Professor X in the MCU, right? Like, is this just to test things like Boxy Boo before they're added to the main canon? Or is it closer to a special delivery thing where all of these are canon and they'll feed into the main story and will break everything we know about the series for like the 8th time this year? Who knows? Not me. I wish I did. Then we would get more views.
Number 3, Breaking Bad. As players explore Blim City and High on Life, they're encouraged to look around vertically as well as horizontally, using all sorts of fun gadgets and gizmos like magnet boots and a jetpack. And in one section of the city, you can come across a full pizza resting on a roof. This out-of-place meal is more than likely a reference to one of the most iconic scenes from Breaking Bad, in which Walt throws a pizza onto the roof of his house in frustration as his marriage with Skylar breaks down. This scene was like legendarily mimetic. People in real life were actually throwing pizzas on the real life White House. So it makes sense that High on Life, with its love of goofy humor and memes and all that, would include a shout out like this in Blim City. Or hey, maybe this is just supposed to be a normal metal roof and somebody broke their oven and forgot about it, but that grease mark slide points to it being a reference, and come on, given what High on Life is about and given what Breaking Bad is about, I gotta assume there's some crossover. And I feel like Jesse Pinkman would love this game.
But ultimately, in at number 2, RES. The RES is the group we play as in Project Playtime when you are the survivors. The acronym stands for Resource Extraction Specialist, and is the reason I've been calling them like the green RE specialists, etc. But this name itself has some interesting implications, since this is more so like an aftermath thing instead of a like in the moment thing. Much like the Marvel Department of Damage Control, the resource extraction specialists are seemingly trying to get whatever remaining salvageable materials are left from the facility after it's been taken over by the toys that we've been fighting against in the main game. The whole point of the survivors is to collect parts of a toy and assemble it. This is what they are completing all of the puzzles for. The puzzles basically acting like the generators in Dead by Daylight, and the toy being the escape zone, where you have to get all of them in order for it to unlock. But when there's only one RES remaining, they can all run to the train. Or not they all can, just the one person, because there's only one left. Much like in Dead by Daylight, when there's only one survivor, you can run to the exit. But the fact that they're trying to collect a giant toy seems like Playtime Co. is sending these guys in an effort to salvage whatever they can from their operation and potentially open under a new name and continue their mission, kind of like Defy Media. And they could also just be looking for a toy to reverse engineer the process from, or it could be another company altogether trying to find the secrets of Playtime Co. But them all having grab packs seems to indicate to me at least that this is an inside job. And finally, in at number 1, the Bigger Bodies Initiative. I wish this was a joke, but Like any seemingly innocent spin-off game, there is of course a secret story with this one. You could say that it does in fact have hidden intent or purpose. Like with most Steam descriptions, typical categories within them, you know, like what is it, how to play, features. But the thing is, these sections aren't actually named to be sections. They're like blue subheadings, but the actual subheadings for the sections are actually messages to us. Can you hear us? Can you see this? Give us a sign. Those are the first three. And by the end, we get a little bit more info with an entire block of text saying, quote, "The bigger bodies initiative will fail. We will prevail. Stay alert. We will be in touch." Which is a total shift from the rest of the description. And I think I know exactly what this is. The final line of the actual game description is, "Won't you play fair?" But it starts glitching out, indicating that whoever this is has broken through and is sending us a proper message. The Bigger Bodies Initiative is a very interesting name as well, and given that the RE specialists are trying to build a bigger toy, you'd think that this is what they meant. But instead, I think that these are big monsters. Huggy, Kissy, Mommy, Boxy. I don't think they were intentional. That wasn't something that Playtime Co. planned for. Or that they were intentional, but whoever sent these specialists in is fighting against the monsters and believes that they will die off. Or maybe all of this is actually the prototype communicating with us, but we don't know because in a 10, what is Charles? Okay, I think we could all agree that Charles isn't an ordinary spider. I think that's pretty obvious. But even by like demon spider train standards, he's not normal. He has colored eggs. He can absorb the energy from those eggs when you attempt to destroy them. And then he has a giant form that is quite literally supposed to be a form from Satan's domain. It's literally called Hell Charles, for God's sakes. Like, how is any of this possible? What could Charles be? Obviously, he's not a demon because those don't lay eggs. He's not the first of his kind. The stone tablet from the beginning of the game gives that away. There were literal ruins on the island based around these eggs. So what in the living hell would be the reason for any of this? Of course, the real reason is Charles, but it couldn't have been when these temples were created. This wasn't specifically Charles. So like, what's really going on with this giant train spider demon from hell that isn't actually a demon? And at 9, evacuation. According to Eugene at the start of the game, the island had actually started evacuations after the discovery of Charles, and that he was one of the first ones off the island. But then, apparently, they seemingly stopped evacuations after this. This could have been because of Warren, and I think the game partially hints at that. But my question is, why the hell are these people listening to some mining corporate stooge about leaving these random people who aren't mining workers on the island? Warren interfering or not, what I can only assume is the government not evacuating as many people as they can. What the hell? Why? Plenty of people still want to go back to the mainland. There's one guy even waiting for another boat. Charles apparently destroyed the last one, but has nobody found that suspicious? Has nobody on the mainland thought, huh, that boat isn't back yet, and they aren't answering any of my calls? Maybe something's wrong. No! There's none of that. We have to row with Eugene back to the island. And if it's within rowing distance, why would they think it's taking so long to bring people back? They wouldn't think that. It wouldn't take that long. So what's the deal? What's the deal with airline food? You know I'm a white comedian because I'm making this voice. That's how it works. Comedy. And at 8, island origins. Now, Charles isn't the only thing that's weird on this island. I mean, like, not only is there a giant demon train spider attacking people, but there seems to be active measures against Charles on the island. And it's there when they arrive. It's not like Warren and his goons built it. So why did whoever was here before build all of this? Clearly they've had to fight off a being like this before thanks to the drawing on the tablet. But what happened that caused the island to be abandoned or go extinct enough that Warren wouldn't really think about starting his operation here? Because if this worked, that wouldn't make sense because they would have had to fail in order for Charles to show up. But clearly they didn't fail originally because they fought off their version of this giant spider. Unless Charles was laying dormant for ages until they unearthed his eggs. But then, why would he have showed up looking like a train used by the mining company? My original theory was that the island itself was possessed by an evil entity that Warren was using to make his fortune. Kind of like a Betrayal at House on the Hill sort of thing, since in that game the house itself is possessed by evil. But that seems to not be the case, even though there are also giant duck that is possibly a kaiju, a swamp monster that is, I'm pretty sure is a reference to squids from Minecraft, and oh yeah, Slenderman. Slenderman. A copyright distinct version of Slenderman. And it's 7, Joy of Creation. The anticipation for the Fazbear Fanverse initiative is building now that Security Breach has released and we don't know anything about what's coming next in the main FNAF universe. However, there are actually references to some of the Fanverse games in Security Breach. For example, the Joy of Creation Easter eggs of Ignited Freddy and Ignited Bonnie found on the House of Bear and House of Bear 2 arcade cabinets found around the Pizzaplex. This is something I actually picked up on my first time through, so needless to say, it's pretty damn cool that I was right about it. The House of Bear cabinet has Ignited Freddy's silhouette standing in the doorway, and House of Bear 2's machine features Ignited Bonnie's face, which could be considered Withered Bonnie, but given the context of Ignited Freddy on the other one, I think it's safe to say that this is Ignited Bonnie. Plus, this can also explain how these games fit into the main timeline, since the Fanverse games could just be the games that Scott's in-universe counterpart made. It would also explain why they have their own FNAF 1 version titled FNAF Plus. And at 6, our origins. Something that I also was wondering while playing this game and made jokes about multiple times was, what the hell is a museum curator doing hunting a giant demon train spider? Okay, like the game, through Eugene, tells us at the beginning that we're trying to keep our museum in business and looking for something big to do it. We don't know what kind of museum we run, and I'm sure most people would assume that it's a monster museum of sorts, considering how he's like, oh yeah, this will be the biggest thing you have ever seen. But if it was a monster museum, firstly, that would never be close to going out of business, okay? Kids would be dragging their parents there all the time. If Ripley's Believe It or Not is still going and like has like a museum in Niagara Falls, a museum about monsters would be fine. And Eugene specifically asks if we're ready for monster hunting, which would imply it's something that we haven't done before. If it was our job, well, of course we would be ready. It's our job, but we seemingly aren't. We then also get referred to as a monster hunter multiple times by NPCs, but we're also referred to as the museum guy. So it's really hard to tell what exactly it is that we do. Plus, depending on your playstyle, you're fine with just straight up killing Warren's guards. I mean, this is justified as self-defense, but it's still taking someone's life, and you're also probably using a giant bazooka to do it. Speaking of which, my favorite weapon is the bazooka, by the way, and if you made it halfway through this list so you can actually see that, be sure you hit like and subscribe, because we're gonna be doing more Choo Choo Charles things, because y'all are loving it. That last video did really well. Halfway through into number 5, time to reflect. If you're like me, you're not really used to mirrors working in video games. Most of the time, they're just like a blank texture that doesn't really do anything, or maybe the mirror is really dusty and you can't actually see anything, or maybe sometimes they're just reflections of the room, but they won't have the player in them. Only in like simpler games like Gary's Mod, which was in essence just a base that people added onto since it started off as a mod, only in those were there actually a reflection, but because the animations were so simple, it made sense and it was actually relatively possible. So when I saw the mirror in Audrey's office right off the bat, I was impressed. But luckily, my experience with Gary's Mod saved me from being more curious, since if I was to interact with the mirror 5 times, the ghostly face of Audrey would briefly flash on the mirror with a loud shriek. That same scream is actually the audio used for Alpha Bendy and Bendy and the Ink Machine's prototype, which would have made me very upset, because as I've expressed multiple times on this channel, I hate jump scares, okay? Gotta love that sensory overload, baby. But either way, this is a requirement for the time to reflect achievement. I say a requirement, but it's the only requirement. But it begs the question, how is this even possible? Unless she's just like hallucinating it. And at 4, Warren. Warren himself is really confusing to me as well, honestly, okay? Like, I don't think anyone has actually seen him before the final cutscene when I've watched people play. I didn't see him before the final cutscene. Where did he come from? Okay, how did he check on the temple that he'd assume is well guarded just as we're about to put the 3rd egg into the shrine thing? Like, maybe he had heard about the egg thefts from the mines, sure. But if that was the case, he would have just upped the security at the temple to make sure that he didn't get put in a position where he had to convince someone that he'd never met before and has been told all sorts of horrific things about him that he's right to guard the eggs. Cause if that was me in that situation and like actually in that world not playing the game and I had the choice, or even if I was just playing the game and it gave me the choice to listen or to use the egg, damn straight I would have destroyed the eggs. I was told nothing but bad and suspicious things about Warren the entire game. I never saw him once. Only at that final cutscene did I ever see him, and if he was in the actual world, he would have stuck out like a sore thumb otherwise. Cause this man was dressed in a full yellow suit with a cowboy hat, like a discount Doug Dimmadome, owner of the Dimsdale Dimmadome. So How does he just show up out of nowhere, think that he'll convince us, and then die in a very evident way like it was supposed to be some big story moment? Like, sure, the secondary antagonist is dead, hooray, but like, why does that matter if we're about to kill Charles anyway? I don't know, it's a whole lot of weird going on here. I don't know what his plan was. And at 3, pizza rumors. Again, found in one of the lore duffel bags, we get quite an interesting parallel between Fazbear Entertainment and Chuck E. Cheese. Found in a party room outside the Moondrop Daycare, we can find, quote, recycled pizza? Customer complaint. The pizza we ordered was weird. Some pieces were different sizes or didn't fit together. One slice even had different toppings. Did you recycle the old pizza from the trash? I am never coming back here unless I am given some form of major discount. Angry mom. End quote. And while they're also playing on the Karen tropes, seemingly, this also has a larger reference to the conspiracy theory that Chuck E. Cheese was recycling their pizzas. It was talked about by everyone from Shane Dawson to Matt Pat, with Matt Pat seemingly proving the rumors false, since they ordered a pizza from Pascali's Pizza and from the actual Chuck E. Cheese, which are made in the same kitchen, and the pizzas from Chuck E. Cheese still looked janky as hell, when it's literally impossible to get recycled pizzas because of a pandemic. So, it's not true, but it's certainly an interesting Easter egg nonetheless. But ultimately, in at number 2, secret intentions. One question I had this whole time was if Warren really was planning on digging for gold like he originally was saying. I don't know. Or was it his intention to find Charles and his eggs from the beginning? We can't really be sure. He definitely does seem like he has hidden intentions and like he's not telling us something that he knows. But in a note that you can find in the tall tower when trying to take the miner's contract for the dude who's too fat to climb the tower, that's literally what the plot of the mission is. I don't know how else to say that. You end up finding a journal entry of sorts that mentions how he doesn't think he'll find any gold on this island. Unless he's writing his journals in code, which I don't see why he would be doing. Like, I don't know why this would be a lie. Why would you lie to yourself in your journal, especially if you're leaving it at the tallest tower on the island that nobody should really be able to access because it's falling apart unless they're us because we're seemingly the Dragonborn. But then when we do get to the final battle, he tells us that we'll kill a lot more people than we'll save if we follow through with our plan, but he never says how, he never says why, or he never says how he knows that. His guards also dress up like Charles worshippers. So at this point, I honestly don't know what this man's intentions are, unless the masks are meant to make Charles think that you're one of his babies or something, and maybe he doesn't attack you, which is a whole other can of worms that I do not want to mess with today. And finally, in at number 1, extravaganza. The biggest twist of the game comes to us in the final cutscene, after the credits. Much like any movie released nowadays, we get something after the credits that has insane implications. One of those being that there's about 1 million more Charles eggs, and that us destroying those 3 from the actual story means nothing in the grand scheme of things. But this begs the question, what the hell are these for? Okay, we kill Hell Charles, and then we see the 4th egg shaking, and then it pans out and you get like 3,000 more. This gives me multiple questions. 1, why are there so many goddamn eggs? 2, where are these all located? Is this what they were searching for in that unmarked mine by the lighthouse? And if it is, what were they planning on doing with them? Why would they guard those 3 eggs if they knew about the others? And what are all these eggs for? Are they really eggs in like a sense that they'll hatch more Charles? Because like they don't look like spider eggs, but this is also a giant train spider. And we know that this just has happened before, thanks to that stone tablet. So what's the deal with the eggs? Can only one of them be hatched at a time? Can we destroy all of them? I have no idea, and that scares me. In a 10 deja vu. Straight up, the first mission of Bendy and the Dark Revival had me remembering the first level of Bendy and the Ink Machine very well, because it was basically the same thing, just slightly shorter this time around, because the section where you could find the items was smaller than the original game. Yeah, I mean, it took me like 15 minutes to actually do it still because I'm incompetent, but like, come on. I make too many non-related jokes, and if I had actually focused, maybe I would have thought things through, but still, okay? This is freaking hilarious. You replay the first chapter of Bendy and the Ink Machine. The whole first chapter, the first goddamn mission, but this time with a creepy old guy watching you the whole time. And seriously, how is Wilson still employed there? Like, I get that like he's like the son, you know, and like nepotism and all that, but like seriously, I and basically everyone else who played the game that I watched that had called out that Wilson was very much a walking HR violation.
How has he not been fired?
Let's see what we can find. Come along now.
Let's. You're the maintenance guy. Dude, you have one eye. How are you supposed to protect me?
But yeah, it's still the first mission, just slightly creepier. Like, even the same Bendy cutout is being placed where we just were. There's the same items on the pedestals. The same reason to have those items there, restarting the ink machine. But the weird thing is that the first version of this took place in a world that doesn't technically exist. So, do with that information what you will. In at 9, Sauron. He is always watching. Okay, well not actually like Sauron, but you know what I mean. The dark atmosphere of the game and the constant paranoia of jump scares, or maybe that's just me, can cause the players to shy away from actually like exploring different parts of the animation studio. Especially when you might think that this is just a linear game like the first time. But no. People can find clues about what's really going on within the animation studio from mysterious artifacts placed around the map. The memory items, the additional audio logs that aren't required for the story, etc. However, for this one, you're actually gonna have to like take a step off the beaten path and kinda go where you wouldn't expect. Players can find eyes painted on a desk drawer in the first chapter of Bendy and the Dark Revival, alright? Like the actual cycle. These eyes have the message "he sees everything" written above them on a table in black ink, obviously, because it's Bendy. But then you can also collect an audio log from on top of that desk and discover even more secrets about what's going on. But honestly, this is terrifying. The idea that we're constantly being watched isn't actually all that far off either, or at least it wasn't that far off because of the whole, you know, spoiler alert for like the story of the game. But if you watch MatPat's theory, you already know about this. 3, 2, 1. But because of the whole world being made by Joey so that he could torture people, it was kind of, yeah, I mean, we were obviously being watched. It's kind of his world. That's how it goes. In at 8, out of map secrets. Yes, much like other popular games, Bendy and the Dark Revival has some out of map secrets as well. While games like Skyrim have just random unused tiles and whatnot, Bendy and the Dark Revival has 2 different characters that you can possibly find. One of them is a physical incarnation of the Wandering Sin. The Wandering Sin is a hidden Bendy cutout found throughout Bendy and the Ink Machine and Boris and the Dark Survival. And in this game, known as Sinful Bendy, it can only be found in inaccessible locations. You can also find Borkis, a paranormal counterpart of Boris the Wolf and hidden enemy in Boris and the Dark Survival. You can also find him in Dark Revival, but unlike their original appearance, he's not a hostile foe, but rather an enigmatic secret that can only be found in other inaccessible areas. But, you know, they're inaccessible areas. So, it's not something that you can normally see, which is unfortunate because, like the secret Bendy, I am also a physical incarnation of Wandering Sins. However, mine are mostly based on lusting after chicken animatronics. It is 7, Island Location. We also don't know where Arcanerum is located. It's closer to the mainland than most might assume, since after all, we do row there with Eugene. But other than that, we get basically no information towards where this game actually takes place. In like a map world geography sense. Not like we know it's Aranerum, but like we don't know where in the world the island would be. I could probably figure it out, but this is a top 10 list and I don't have that kind of time. So if I'm gonna do that, I'll have to save it for another video, and let me know if you actually want to see something like that in the comments. I have some ideas about how I could figure it out, but if you don't want the video, I'm not gonna force it on you and I'm not gonna force myself to do it. But yeah, other than we know it's within rowing distance of a mainland, that's all we have. Well, okay, we know it's within rowing distance for a father who is trying to make sure his son doesn't get killed by a giant demon train spider, so I think that it'll be a little further than your average Joe, or average Eugene in this case. Dare I say. I feel like a Joe would be able to row further than a Eugene though. I don't know. Like in my head, that's my opinion. Depends on the Joe though. Hey, that rhymed. In at 6, Roll Ink Loud. The Ink Jets are a band of lost ones who can sometimes be found rocking out in artist rests. To unlock this event though, the player must have 2 halves of a ticket. So, you know, making 1 full ticket. The first part will be on a table in a room where Twisted Alice has Audrey solve a puzzle, and the second one can be found in the Ghent building, in the room with the rounding silos. The player must then go to the 2nd floor room and they'll find Keeper Log 26, and it will be tucked in the back of a storage cabinet to the right of that desk. After this, you're able to see the ink jets jamming out, which I think is just, it's funny as hell, okay? I love that for some reason in this world that Joey created, there's a random, like, actual ink boy band in the middle of artist rests. And for some reason, they'll put on shows. And like, only if you have the ticket. Like anyone else that can be there while they perform, but you specifically, you need a ticket. Because you're a Drew, or at least supposed to be. More on that later. Halfway through into number 5, Gregory's missing. This is something I picked up on in the second ending I got in my playthrough, in what is commonly referred to as the worst ending, where you simply leave the Pizzaplex by yourself without Freddy. The first ending I got is actually the Vanny ending, which to me is my canon ending. It's a different way to explain that. But in this ending, Gregory ends up running away and hiding in a cardboard box. This box is assumed by most to be his home since he doesn't really have one and can't really return to the Pizzaplex. However, this is where this detail comes in. The newspaper he's using as a blanket has multiple silhouettes of the children who have gone missing this time around. 9 of them, this time to be exact. However, the one in the bottom left corner looks an awful lot like Gregory when he's standing in front of all those security monitors in the first security breach trailer. I'm just saying, especially when Vanessa says that he's been wiped from the system. And I'm pretty sure one of those lore bags also shows us that we've been wiped from the system as per someone's request. So that's certainly not a coincidence. And I doubt Scott used it and just thought, oh yeah, this is easy, let's do that. No, not a chance. There has to be something there. In at 4, Majora's Mask. The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask is commonly known as one of the scariest Zelda games. The looming threat, a time limit, and having to repeat your 3 days over and over until you save everyone is definitely terrifying. But now that I think about it, it's kind of similar to the cycle. The cycle is created so that Henry can go through the first game over and over again, being tortured as a totally healthy and not at all a serial killer origin story in any way by Joey, because that's not a red flag. But once Henry does it, or tries to do it, and fails, he restarts, which must be why the Majora's Mask moon actually makes an appearance in Bendy and the Dark Revival. Yeah, you're goddamn right it does. You smash 10 jars in the city area, and then you look up, the moon will grow to an enormous size and have an angry face on it, which disappears once you look away. This Easter egg is obviously a reference to Majora's Mask. I mean, obviously, I don't really know why I felt the need to say it again, but just in case you didn't know. And I don't think that it will kill you, but if it did, that would be funnier. If you look away and then you look back, however, it will be gone, so it doesn't last forever. Getting close to the end, and number 3, Hell Charles. So the actual origins of Charles and how he came to be are extremely confusing. You see, the reason they call him Charles is because that's the name of the mining company run by Warren, the guy who's been uncovering the eggs. You know, the one that I just talked about, yellow monkey suit. It's like the man from Curious George and Doug Dimmadome combined. That's basically what I see when I look at him. Yeah, that guy. And that's the name of the company. And they're not calling him that because like they blame him for Charles. It's because that's like the branding on the train. The trains are meant to transport materials, therefore the trains are Warren's and are branded with the company logo, including the train that we're using before we start adding any armor to it and then it gets covered up. And all the other discarded trains we find along the way, like in the junkyard where you get the lockpick and various other locations like outside of mines. They all have the Charles branding, which implies that Charles somehow took control over or became a copy of the trains used by Warren and used by us as we play. How could that even happen? And then on top of that, he can absorb the energy from his eggs when they're being destroyed, and when he does do so, he transforms into an even more monstrous version of himself called Hell Charles. What the absolute fuck? This answers none of the questions that I had, it only gives me more. Bro, Hell Charles? And ultimately, in at number 2, Forza Crowd. Jane Todd was a former employee at Joey Drew Studios. Her corpse can actually be found in this game next to an audio log in Chapter 2 of Dark Revival. Jane Todd's corpse looks defeated as it lies lifeless on the floor, her body being somewhat blue, which makes it stand out, but that could also just be like the whole shading with colors kind of thing, since, you know, the corpse is made of ink, so it's jet black. You can't really shade black with black, so it makes sense for them to use blue. But either way, we actually know that this is a corpse since it has persisted and didn't turn into a pure puddle of ink after death, which does mean that this is meant to be Jane Todd. Yeah, this is definitely a situation where she turned into an ink creature, but this really does make me think, is this her? Like, is this her, or is it just like an assistant? Because she could be the member of the Butcher gang that she proposed. Jane Todd was working on animation animating a fourth character that could be a part of the Butcher Gang. She wanted to make her character, Carly, join the Butcher Gang along with Bendy, Alice, and Boris, but nobody believed that it would actually happen, and then she was dead. And finally, in at number 1, Audrey Ark. This isn't a confirmed secret, however MatPat seems to make a pretty good case for Audrey Drew actually being Audrey Arch. Well, kind of. You see, throughout the game you collect various memories which don't really have an explanation beyond what the item is. MatPat believes that these all belong to Nathan Arch, the founder of Archgate Films and an old friend of Joey Drew, and that after allowing Joey Drew Studios to go bankrupt so that he could acquire the Bendy IP at a steal, that Joey somehow got Tessa Arch, Nathan's wife, into the ink machine and turned her into Audrey, so that Joey could finally have a proper family of his own, which would also then mean that we'd be playing as Wilson's mother. And that at the end of the game, Wilson has an Oedipus complex so massive that therapists could be studying it for a millennia, even if it is unknowingly so. But maybe that's why he was so drawn to Audrey, and uses her to turn the ink machine back on instead of literally anyone else could have been there at any other time. Or maybe it's wrong, because after all, that is just a theory. A game theory. Because it's a theory coming from game theory, so it's a game theory. In a 10 daycare hole. One of the most interesting aspects of a free roam game is all the secret areas and Easter eggs you can hide, like the Portal 2 Easter egg hidden in Skyrim of all games. However, in FNAF it's much more than that, since each tiny Easter egg or detail can help us figure out what the hell has been going on in this series for the past 8 years, which makes the appearance of secret little cubby holes around the Pizzaplex very interesting. Like the one for the Moondrop and Sunnydrop animatronic hidden behind the daycare center behind a Foxy poster unlocked by taking pictures of certain cardboard cutouts that are also actually on the poster, which makes me think, are there more areas that need to be unlocked like that, or something like that? I'm sure many have tried various things, but I don't know, it feels like there should be one for like the laser gun equivalent. In this little hole, however, you can find a mini game called Balloon Boy World, which we will talk about more later on. But also it contains a duffel bag with lore and the Golden Moon animatronic plush required for one of the achievements, so it's certainly somewhere that you'd want to go. You can also get the achievement for playing the Balloon Boy World minigame also. In at 9, Vanessa Therapy. Something I was unaware of until completing the game and getting Roxy's eyes were 16 retro CDs that can be found towards the end of the game. You have to actually have Roxy's eyes to see them though, because they don't spawn in unless you have the eyes. These can be played with a CD player hidden in a sister location secret room. The retro CDs require Roxanne's eye upgrade on Glamrock Freddy, and for the CDs to spawn in, Gregory has to be inside an upgraded Glamrock Freddy, be near the disc and like looking at where it would be, and then exiting to actually be able to collect it, otherwise it won't spawn in if you're looking away. The order in which the CDs are found does not seem to affect which recordings are unlocked, just the amount of CDs found, which is clearly a reference to the 16 tapes found in FNAF VR that weren't really found in a particular order. Collecting them just seemed to unlock them in sequence. However, these tapes seem to also contain therapy sessions between Vanessa and a therapist, as well as a therapist and another individual who goes unnamed, but could also be Gregory. We don't know because they never talk. And at 8, Fire Dave. One of the various lore duffel bags we can stumble upon in this game is a customer complaint titled Hi Dave, which upon inspection reads, quote, "Customer complaint. You should fire Dave, he sucks." And while it's short and sweet and to the point, it also is seemingly a reference to the FNAF novels, since if you're unaware, in the novels William Afton was introduced, but at first he was going by the alias Dave Miller. And considering how this customer says that we should fire Dave, I think that's a pretty telling way to reference the book's most infamous employee, and also reference the fact that Afton is in the Pizzaplex right below our noses. This duffel bag can be found on the farthest left bench next to the lockers in customer service, which seems to indicate that Dave also worked in customer service. Just a horrible place for a serial killer to work, just saying. In at 7, Soup Can Retcon. Believe it or not, like Ripley's, there's actually a retcon in Bendy and the Dark Survival. In a cabinet under the table of confiscated weapons, which I believe you can see in either chapter 3 or 4, is a bacon soup minigun, which you can't actually use, unfortunately, because that would be awesome. But the bacon soup minigun itself is a reference to a hack or a glitch where you could infinitely throw the empty bacon soup can in Bendy and the Ink Machine Chapter 4, Colossal Wonders. So basically, it explains that hack or glitch as an actual hidden canon feature within the game, which is like the weirdest thing to retcon, but also like goddamn, that's interesting. I like that. I wish I could use it though. And at 6, Freddie Mercury. Did you know that Freddy Fazbear in the opening cutscene to FNAF Security Breach is actually making a reference to Freddie Mercury. Yeah, neither did I. But thanks to some helpful YouTube commenters, not on these videos, on other videos, it was pointed out to me there. While on stage when showcasing his name, Freddy Fazbear strikes a similar pose to Freddie Mercury, which is kind of iconic and understandable given that both their names are Freddy. And I don't really want to see Freddy getting up on his toes, grabbing his crotch and yelling, "Ow!" in reference to Michael Jackson. Someone also ended up making an album cover for the glam rock band singing Bohemian Rhapsody, which is absolutely iconic and I love it. I kind of want to hear this now though. Like, why can't we have this instead of like Freddy telling Gregory that he needs to vent like a sussy baka? Like, why has that been going around? Like, Gregory, have you heard of Among Us, Gregory? You need to vent. I don't know. And why is my TikTok For You page filled with FNAF memes and FNAF related content all of a sudden, okay? It was like the one safe place I had. But now there's like glam rock Freddy filters and like sunny drop filters and Gregory being a sussy baka and like but Vanessa, I'm a material girl things. Like, what the f, man? Why? Halfway through into number 5, altars. Now, I thought that there was more to this game than there was. I really did. Specifically because there were 3 random altars that you could find around the map. One of them is across from the final temple. Another is by a house with a locked door that has a secret behind it that calls you out for cheating. And another is closer to like what I would assume is the middle of the island. Like, not like the middle of the top half, but like the middle of like the middle. My thinking was like 3 altars that all seem to be the perfect size for eggs, 3 eggs. I must be able to get like a secret ending or some cool ability by placing the eggs on these altars before I take them to the final fight, or instead of taking them, but no, they didn't do anything. You can't actually interact with them. They don't have anything around them that does anything. One might have a scrap, one has a note that starts talking about Gus the Bus, which is another entity on the mainland that Charles is scared of apparently, but it's just random ravings. I thought that these were gonna be like something insane where I was able to destroy all of the eggs at once and then it was actually a good ending, but it's just a crazy guy talking about a bus demon, so nope. What are they for? That's my question. They're there, there's 3 of them, they have to have a purpose. What is it? In at 4, Monty the Murderer. One of the biggest questions this game seems to have is where did Bonnie go? While with sister location, simply put, Funtime Chica was rented out, that's not really the case with Bonnie and Security Breach. We hear Freddy say that there isn't a bunny here anymore in a somber way as if he was killed, but by who is the bigger question. In the lore duffel bags, we can find various bits of evidence though that suggest Monty could be to blame, since after all he did end up replacing Bonnie as the new bass player after his accident. But was it really an accident? Let's look at what the bags say. Quote, "The bowling alley needs a retheme. While most of the Bonnie art was removed, kids keep asking where's Bonnie? Do we have an officially approved response?" Which makes it seem like Bonnie isn't simply out of commission. But we can get even more specific. Quote again, 12:24 a.m. Bonnie is seen leaving his green room in Rockstar Row headed east towards the atrium. 2:40 a.m. Bonnie enters the East Arcade. 4:12 a.m. Bonnie enters Monty Golf. And considering how that's where the log ends, we can be pretty certain that Bonnie ate the dust over at Monty Golf, which would make even more sense given that Monty replaced Bonnie, became more popular than Bonnie, and then was also the last place Bonnie was seen. Seems pretty sus to me. I mean, maybe Monty was the one who should have been venting. We're getting close to the end in number 3, Sock Puppet. Apparently there's a lot of hidden secrets in the first scene, or in like the first area, because you can see some freaky At the beginning of the game, if you press the button to call the elevator, you can then backtrack to Audrey's workroom. You can pick up a plush ball from under her desk in the same area that you initially collected her keys, and then you can pick up 2 more balls on your way back from 2 other office areas. One is on the floor near a wall, and the second is on a desk in the center. Return to the elevator hall and interact with Wilson's bucket and mop and throw those balls in, and a sock puppet will then jump out of the bucket, earning you the achievement, "Did you see that?" This makes absolutely no sense, because the scene is supposed to take place in the real world. However, I think the interesting part about this is that you're using balls to summon this thing, and there's a baseball used as a memory object later in the game. Now that is probably a coincidence, since this is an Easter egg, but maybe the sock puppet being linked to Wilson and the memory could be a bigger hint to another little secret. Penultimately, in number 2, Arcade Conspiracy. The Arcade Conspiracy gets its name from one of the duffel bags that you can find, where we learn that something else seems to be going on here. Quote from this Arcade Conspiracy note, "Exit into interview. They are working together, the arcades. They are hiding something, the glitches. Glitch them all at the same time, then the princess will recognize me. She's testing me. I am not yet worthy. The others are protecting it. Let me stay. I'm so close. Just one more night, please. I can save the princess. Now it's clear that this seems to be referencing the Princess Quest minigames. However, it doesn't really seem like we have to glitch the Princess Quest games in order to win. We just have to beat them in orders from 1 to 3 and then boom, we save Vanny. So what could the rest of this mean? Well, there are 3 other arcade machines that seem to be having mysterious glitches as well. The Balloon Boy World game that you can find in the theater and the secret area. Chica's Feeding Frenzy, which won't turn off even when unplugged, that you're supposed to be able to find in the bakery but that hasn't been added yet. And Monty Golf A-Arcade, that according to its duffel bag shouldn't be in the mini golf area, but it is. So what's the deal here? What's going on with these games? And does it have anything to do with the Happiest Day minigame where we need to glitch out various minigames in order to unlock the good ending of FNAF 3? I don't know, but we won't be able to know until Chica's Feeding Frenzy is officially added into the game because they released Security Breach without it being complete. And finally, in at number 1, Freddy and Friends. In the area where you end up forcing Chica to eat garbage in order for her to get crushed, you can find a secret door. A duffel bag will be hidden next to it, indicating that you need to take a picture of the wall to continue, and doing so results in a tiny door opening so that Freddy can't actually fit through, but you can. But the room it leads to is probably one of the most interesting things at all. A replica of the room that Mike watches The Immortal and the Restless in from Sister Location, even including the basket of exotic butters. If that wasn't bad enough, you can also see the Freddy and Friends cartoon on the TV, which explains why Steel Wool was posting them to begin with if they never intended on fully releasing the release date with them, since the security code on the wall was meant to be solved using these cartoons, which is why it's playing on the TV, so you associate that code with Freddy and Friends. But needless to say, it's certainly an interesting and pretty damn cool Easter egg, although it opens up a whole other can of worms if that's the case, since, you know, Glitch Trap was found in the final episode of that, and now this series exists in the FNAF world. I don't know, maybe I'll have to do more research on this, really, to see if there's more going on here than we realize.